Welcome to a new episode of the Patriots Hub Podcast from the NFL Combine. Alex Barth with Mike Petraglia of CLNS Media, the Jungle Roar podcast. Yep. You guys might know him as Trags. He covered Boston sports for 30 years? Don't want to shortchange it. 27.
We are always striving for perfection, Alex.
Exactly. So you may remember him as Trags from that, but he is now in Cincinnati covering his hometown Bengals. So I thought we'd check in because there has been a lot of rumors linking the Patriots and the Bengals throughout the offseason. Of course, most of those relate to wide receiver Tee Higgins. And, you know, check your watch. What time is it? There's a different report on what's going to happen with Tee Higgins. He's getting tagged. He's getting a long term. He's getting traded. He's getting tagged and traded. Seems like he's not going to hit open free agency. That's the one thing I think that's off the table.
I think that's accurate.
But at this point, what is your expectation for Tee Higgins?
So my expectation is that the Bengals get a deal done with Tee Higgins because he's 26, in his prime, with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase. All of those factors matter. Now, there was some speculation the other night when Tee Higgins tweeted out a picture of a blue cap. And apparently a blue cap means, in Urban Dictionary terms, a lie.
Well, it's just cap, the word cap.
Cap.
The emoji is just blue.
Got it. Well, thank you for correcting me.
Striving for perfection.
We do that, Alex, and I appreciate that. However, back to the point, Tee Higgins apparently tweeted this after Duke Tobin, the director of player personnel for the Bengals, said Bengals are making every conceivable effort and have made every conceivable effort over the last several years to sign Tee. Tee has always been a player that they have wanted to sign long term. Now, there are those in Tee Higgins' camp, namely his mom, who's been very vocal about supporting her son, that the Bengals have not done everything in their power to sign Tee Higgins long term. Look, I think a lot of this is just a lot of the social media build up to an eventual deal getting done. I could be wrong. It could change at the last minute. The Bengals have had their difficulties in years past in getting to the finish line with some star players. I mean, you could go to Jesse Bates most recently and letting him get out of the building, which still, to this day, upsets a lot of Bengal players who are still on that team that went to the Super Bowl. Andrew Whitworth is another very public name, came back and bit the Bengals in the butt in Super Bowl 56, won the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. So, with all of that being said, yes, there's a possibility this could fall apart at the last minute, but my expectation is the Bengals are going to try to get Tee Higgins done at about 3 years, $30 million per, with maybe a fourth-year option, bringing the total value up to about $120 million. Guaranteed money would be about 75 to 80. The other shoe to drop, of course, would be Jamar Chase. They are the two priorities. Jamar Chase, you're absolutely looking at $40 million a year if you want to get the deal done. $40 million a year over 4 years. Certainly breaking the glass on the Justin Jefferson deal, which is really has mattered to Jamar Chase all along. So 4 years, $160 million, $40 million per. Guaranteed money, $105, $110 million probably would get the deal done.
Just to go back to Higgins real quick, do you think there's any chance, right, if maybe it's not going great in the negotiations, and we know teams talk, they start finding out maybe this is on the table, maybe that's on the table. Could messaging of a significant trade package maybe change the way they look at this? And if so, what do you think the package would have to be if the negotiations don't get where they need to get for a team to trade for Tee Higgins?
I think they'd have to blow the Bengals away. You're talking about a first-round pick, no question, and then probably a second-round pick and a player perhaps for Tee Higgins. Again, I come back to this, Alex. You're not talking about a 29, 30-year-old player who still would be very productive at that position. You're talking about a 26-year-old player who is arguably one of the three best downfield compete receivers in the National Football League. That's what you're getting in Tee Higgins. The reason he matters more to the Bengals is you have Jamar Chase on the other side. You have Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. That not only matters more to the Bengals, it matters more to Tee Higgins because he knows he can get better numbers if Joe Burrow is throwing the football and Jamar Chase is on the other side. Look at the 2 years that that the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. Tee Higgins had, I believe it was 53, 57 catches for over 1,000 yards and 13 combined touchdowns. This year, Tee Higgins, when he played, and he does have the injury issue, that is the biggest factor for the Bengals in negotiating a long-term deal. But he had a career-high 10 touchdown catches. He had 910 yards receiving, 911 yards receiving. Still a great year, and he missed 5 games.
So that you talked about the trio of Burrow, Chase, Higgins. I mean, that's a lot of money, even if Burrow is willing to rework his deal, which we've talked about, could be an option for them on the table, him kind of giving some money back, right, to facilitate that. Well, now there's also Trey Hendrickson, the star pass rusher, who is going. Does he want a new deal this offseason? Let's start there. Is he willing to play on a contract year?
No, he wants a new deal.
So he's, in theory,
and they
out
want
there
to give him a new deal to make it make sense for them to have him locked in for at least 2 more years. They see him, a 30-year-old who's going to be 31 in December, as somebody who can still be very productive. And if you don't have Trey Hendrickson, that defense, boy, I mean, I know you can win with offense in this year, in this modern day NFL, but you need a Trey Hendrickson, and you've got him in the building. He loves Cincinnati. His family loves Cincinnati. He just wants to be paid much more commensurate with what he's worth than what he's getting now.
Is there a chance, though, you spend all that money on offense, that the Bengals look at it and say, like, would he be the third option, right?
Yes, behind Jamar and behind Tee.
How realistic?
Absolutely.
How realistic is it that he would become available? And if so, what do you think the cost would be to get him in a trade?
Wow. Again, you're talking about probably at least a second rounder and maybe a third rounder. I don't think the Bengals are inclined to trade him. He's under contract.
Right.
This is not a guy who needs to even be tagged. He signed a 1-year extension, which wasn't the best business move, but he wanted security, Alex.
Right.
Which I can't fault the guy, but he wanted security coming off, I believe it was an injury season a couple years ago. So, okay, they gave him the security, but understand that when you extend your contract a year, the Bengals don't have any obligation to change that contract.
Do you think he'd hold out? I mean, we just went through this last year in New England with Matthew Judon.
Remember last year before training camp, or actually in June, I believe it was, he demanded a trade during OTAs.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
He demanded a trade, and they literally, Alex, laughed at him because the Bengals were like, and Zach Taylor was like, we'd love to pay you what you're worth, but you're under contract, Trey. And they're not going to, our ownership isn't going to do anything more and can't do anything more right now with all this other, with all these other contracts and financial factors that they have to take into account. They're just not going to do that.
So you're projecting all 3 staying in Cincinnati?
I am, because Duke Tobin made it clear on Tuesday here in Indianapolis that the Bengals have the space to get this done. They want to get it done. The cap is going up. They had a ballpark $60 million under the cap to work with. Cap is going up to $279.1 million. They're in good financial position. They're going to have some cap casualty cuts. They've already cut Sheldon Rankins. I think Alex Kappa, you can see him heading out the door. They're probably going to trade Jermaine Pratt after he demanded a trade, but either he's going to be cut or he's going to be traded. He's not going to be on the roster next year either.
In terms of maybe incoming players, do you think there's a chance the Bengals, who have struggled against the run, would have any interest in Devon Godshaw, who is,
I heard
Patriots might move?
I was talking with some New England people, talking with your folks yesterday, and I think there's definitely interest there. And obviously, he worked with Jerry Montgomery, who's the new Bengals defensive line coach, and Jerry Montgomery spoke yesterday. But Godshaw is a guy that gives the Bengals what they don't have, and that is a space eater in the middle of the defensive line. The Bengals have been horrible at stopping the run, especially in short yardage situations. They just have not been very good at it. They need bulk. a couple of Bengals officials have told me this year, one thing we've got to do is we've got to move away a little bit from speed and quickness to strength and power.
Yeah.
Especially along the defensive line. And the Bengals really lost that in DJ Reader when he went to Detroit. They had it in Larry Ogunjobi a couple of years back, going back to their Super Bowl year. And they need to get back to that to really bring out the strengths of guys like Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson.
Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media, the Jungle Roar podcast. As a Patriots fan, you want to stay up to date on what's happening with Tee Higgins. This is the guy to follow at Trags on social media. Trags, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Alex. Thank you.